promote social, economic and industrial needs for national development. Nchi yetu inakuwa nchi ya kupendeza. Manake watoto wetu wamefundishwa vizuri na wamesoma. National goal number 3 of education in Kenya is it promotes individual development and self-fulfillment. Unapata mtoto amesoma, ameachieve all what he or she needs. So anakuwa na self-fulfillment. The other thing, if a child is educated, it promotes sound moral and religious values. Yes, we have different religions in Kenya, but when we teach our children well, they'll be able to promote the religious values. Another goal of education in Kenya is that if somebody is educated, it promotes social equality and responsibility. Unapata hakuna mwanamke na hakuna mwanamume. Sisi wote tuko equal. We are equal because of education. Another goal of education is it promotes respect for the development of Kenyan culture. Yes, if we are learned, our children are learned, our culture inakuwa protected na inakuwa iko sawa kabisa. Second, lastly, it promotes international consciousness. Unapata mpaka hata akiwa huko nje, hata kama outside Kenya, anaelewa mambo vile yanaenda. And finally, the national goal of education that we have is it promotes a positive attitude towards environmental protection. We have to teach our children on how to protect the environment. Na wakifunzwa hayo yote, wanakuwa sawa. That is a question that has been asked. What is the difference between CBC and 844 education system? If I may tell you, 844 ilianzishwa 1985.
Excuse kidogo. Communication team, kindly project the slide with the difference between CBC and 844. Felicitas, you can continue.
Thank you so much. Yes. So I'm starting from the formulation here for the 844 and for the CBC system. So for the 844, it came into existence in the year 1985 and it was implemented to replace the older curriculum ambayo ilikuwa ni 7423. Yes, initially it was 7423 ndio li replace and your 844 ikaingia. But CBC came into existence in 2017. They replaced 844. The next difference ni kwa goal. They have different goals. Kwa 844, it is all about aligning education with the needs of the labor market by emphasizing practical skills and workforce readiness through a more comprehensive curriculum that included vocational training options across all levels. Kwa hivyo it had a lot of workforce. Kazi ilikuwa mingi sana kwa 844, unlike CBC, ambayo it helps students to develop skills for the 21st century. We are here to develop skills. Mtoto anapata skills. Akiambiwa do this, inaonekana huyo mtoto ako able kufanya hivyo. So CBC is all about development of skills. Another difference between CBC and 844 ni kwa focus. In that, in 844, it was teacher-centered. The teacher was, alikuwa anatoka na kila kitu. It was teacher-centered, unlike CBC, which is learner-centered, whereby the learners are given a lot of skills and we are able to develop a holistic learner. In terms of assessment, kwa 844, the grade students based a summative assessment in class 8 and 12. Lakini kwa CBC, the grade students based on work and improvement over time. Inakuwa iko sawa. Watoto wako sawa. In career choosing, kwa CBC, students choose a track. Ndio maana unasikia wakifika grade 8, 9, after grade 9, there are some tracks that they are going to choose. So in CBC, students choose a track that is the STEM, social science or arts and sports in grade 9. Hiyo kwa 844 haikukuwa. In 844, students choose a career path at the end of grade 12. The learning style in 844, it encouraging memorization, cramming. It was sort of drilling. Unapata mtoto kama ni topic fulani anafunzwa. It was all about cramming ili apite mtihani. Unlike CBC, which encourages soft skills like communication and collaboration. Anafundishwa kuongea na kujifunza mambo mengi, si kukram, no. Ana learn a skill step by step na anaweza kushika. Is it okay, Brother Arvince?
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. That is the introductory bit. There are quite a number of terminologies that we as parents, we as a church need to be conversant with to be able to help our children. And I will ask Sister Janet to take us through some of the terminologies that CBC uses, different from 844.
Thank you, Elder. We have some terminologies that are being used in CBC that we as parents, we need to understand the terminologies compared to the 844 that we used to know. For example, in 844, we used to have subjects, but in CBC, we no longer call them as subject, we call them learning area. Then, while teaching, in 844, we used to have topic, so that we introduce learning. But in CBC, we have a strand. Then, subtopic in CBC is substrand. Then the objective of learning in 844 in CBC is learning outcome. Then the syllabus itself in 844 in CBC is curriculum design. Then we know teachers, even in the Bible, we call those who teach as teachers. In 844, we used to call them teacher, but now in CBC, teachers have a new name. They are being called as facilitator. Then remarks. When you give remarks, maybe you give a remarks of learning outcome. In CBC, we do reflection. Then sometimes we have learners who are a bit challenged. In CBC, in 844, sometimes they were being called slow learners, or rather, the term that was being used there was weak learner, a weak learner. But in CBC, they are called as time takers. Then in 844, they were used to doing exams, but in CBC, there is assessment. And in assessment in CBC, we have those continuous assessment, and then finally summative assessment. But most of the assessment being done in CBC is always formative assessment, which means this is continuous assessment that the class teacher does in class. And then finally, summative assessment is being done. Then we have report books. But in CBC, we have assessment books. Then the initial beginning of learning in 844, we used to have baby class. But in CBC, we have playgroup. Then preschool is PP1, pre-unit is PP1, nursery is PP2. Then nowadays we no longer call learners who are in a class like class, but we refer them to be in a grade. Then we have lessons that are being done, but in 844 we used to have a lesson, but now in CBC we have them as activity. Thank you, Brother Arvince.
Thank you, Sister Janet. So reasons why we have gone through this is there's some terminologies that we may use, like learning area. We may use like learning area. I know there are some parents here whose children need to go to senior school. We do not even know the way forward. We shall take us through those. Your child need to take a certain line to be able to become, be in a given profession in future. We need to be taken through so that we can advise our children accordingly. Remember from the book of Proverbs, chapter 22, verses 6, we are advised that you train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart. There's a difference between teaching, training, and learning. When you talk about teaching, teaching broadly involves the acquisition of knowledge. To teach somebody is just to empower this person in terms of being knowledgeable. But when you talk about training, training is concerned about development of skills. And when you talk about learning, there are certain scholars called Benjamin Bloom. I will not go through the taxonomic units for Bloom. There is another one called Morgan, who defines learning, that learning is a relatively permanent change in behavior. For a teacher to be able to tell that learning has taken place, there must be a change in behavior. So looking at those three terminologies, the writer of Proverbs 22 verses 6 was very wise in the choice of the word train up. So training up a child involves acquisition of skills, and therefore I'd like to ask my sister, Felicitas, before we go through the core competencies, can I request that you flash us through the pillars? The pillars. So in CBC, we have the vision of CBC. We have the mission of CBC. Can in the next slide. Then there are certain pillars that build what we call core competencies of CBC. CBC is very important in this 21st century. Of course, I will ask my sister Felicitas to take us through the core statements of CBC, even as communication team flashes the pillars, the framework.
Okay, we have the CBC mission statements, the domains, and the core competencies or the skills in CBC, whereby we have the vision and the mission. They are the drivers in CBC. So the vision of CBC that we should know as parents is that it is engaged, empowered, and ethical citizen. It has to produce a child who is engaged, empowered, and ethical citizen. A child who is organized. That is the vision of CBC. And the mission, it is all about nurturing every learner's potential, bila kumbagua ukisema huyu hawezi ama akona nini. So our mission is nurturing every learner's potential. Then we have the core values that guide us in CBC. We have core values like responsibility, love, respect, unity, peace, integrity, and patriotism. Hizo zote watoto wetu wanafundishwa kwa CBC. So if you look at that picture there, you'll be able to see the basic education of the framework pillars, the pillars that we have in CBC, whereby in one side utaona we have our mission and the vision. Then hapo kwa side you'll be able to see the pillars, whereby we have mwalimu nisaidia kusoma hapo the pillars. The pillars of CBC, Janet.
The first pillar there I can see value. Then the second pillar I can see theoretical approaches, then principles, then national goals. Yeah, only those three. Thank you.
Sawa, na hizo zote ziko hapo chini mali kuna core competencies. They cannot work alone. Hapo chini kuna core competencies ambazo ziko 7. Ya kwanza ni communication and collaboration. The child will be told on how to communicate and collaborate with the other children and even with the parents and with teachers. Number 2, our core competence that we have is critical thinking and problem solving, whereby the child will be able to gather information, evaluate, use the relevant information to understand the environment around them. The other core competence that we have is creativity and imagination, whereby the child can be able to take a risk na mwenyewe anaitafutia namna ya kuifanya. Creativity and imagination. The other one is citizenship, whereby the children are being taught on how to respect one another and also to be modest. The other one is learning to learn. In CBC, the children are taught on how to learn to learn. How? They are taught about self-management, self-knowledge, and work commitment. Akipewa kazi, anajua kufanya. Second last, we have self-efficacy, whereby the children are able to interact effectively with others. And finally, digital literacy. And that's why when you give your child your phone, they can do so many things, because in school, in CBC, they are taught more about digital literacy. Thank you.
Thank you, my sister. Maybe communication team, let us go back to that house. Very, very important for us. The national goals of education are important. Felicitas took you through. There are 8 national goals of education. That is what we'd like a learner to be ultimately. And for those 8 national goals, something else that you need to understand, or rather to be well versed with, are the core competencies. We have 7 core competencies she has taken you through. So if you look at that house, what we have at the base of the house, at the floor, they are the 7 core competencies. Communication and collaboration being one of them. Learning to learn. That learning is a continuous process, among others, including digital literacy that our sister took us through. But for us to get to those core competencies, she began with vision and mission. The vision of CBC, mission of CBC, which of course are the roof. Then the 3 pillars that Sister Janice took us through, the values, among other pillars, are the pillars that lead to a child attaining the vision and mission. So we have the base, which are the core competencies. When there is good foundation for that base, and of course pillars appropriately designed, then we expect the house to be strong, and of course the kind of a child that needs to be produced will be found. In the morning, I told us of education, page 7, paragraph 3, which talks about true education is the harmonious development of all faculties. That from a Christian perspective, what Sister White advocates for, and the kind of Adventist education that we advocate for, is not only a learning to be well versed about the things of this world, but then we should train our children in such a way that they are ready to take part in the activities that we undertake today, but they're also ready to be able to have eternal life, future eternal life. That the ultimate goal of education, if you read from the Ellen G. White's book, Education, is to know more about God, know more about Jesus Christ. Now that we have CBC with us, and of course, there are parents. There's a parent I had the other day asking about pathways. Amesikia hii mambo ya pathways, hii mambo ya CBC inamkula kichwa kweli kweli. But now that teachers are here, I'd like Teacher Janet to take us through what are the 3 pathways of CBC, and we will look at the learning areas what are the subjects? We told you that in 844, we used to talk about subjects, but in CBC, we talk about learning areas. So what subjects must a student take so that ultimately a student may move towards a given career? Janet, kindly, CBC pathways and learning areas.
Thank you so much. CBC pathways and learning areas. Of course, right now we are aware of the terminologies that we are using in to elaborate more about the CBC curricula. Now we have three main pathways. The first one is STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Now, this, the first pathway will be guided with different learning areas so that the learner will be achieving the principles, the concepts that need to be achieved while being taught in the learning, different learning areas. Then the second pathway that we have is social science. Now in social science, this is a pathway that focuses on a study of human societies, of course, our culture, the behavior. This includes like history, the history of our country, the history of our culture, getting to know deeper on who we are as a country, to understand the history of our country. Then we have economics and sociology. Then the third pathway that we have is art and sports. Art and sport, this is a pathway that focuses on artistic expression, creative fields, and sports-related disciplines. So a CBC learner, when a child goes to school, is always, the final focus is on the CBC pathways. And when we look at areas that need to be achieved when a learner goes to school, the CBC, a child starts school at the age of 4 years. That is PP1. PP1 to PP2, we have area of focus, and this is more of interaction skills. A child is being taught how to communicate, how to interact, and this can be achieved in the following learning areas. That is like the 844 that uses it as a subject. Now in CBC we don't call it subject, but we call it learning areas. Now the learning area that is being taught in PP1 and PP2 is environmental studies, creative arts, mathematics, English language, and religious activities. Then from there, we have grade 1 to 3. In grade 1 to 3, main focus is on socialization skills, whereby if you have socialization skills, children or students learn how to solve their own problems. They learn how to share. They learn how to take turns. They learn how to fit in the community. And so they are also being guided with the following learning areas. Now, in this case, from grade 1 to 3, they are now focusing on 7 learning areas. That is environmental studies, creative arts activities, mathematics activities, English language activities, religious activities, then Kiswahili stroke Kenya Sign Language. Our children will easily learn sign language. That is, if they are oriented to a school that provide a facilitator who can take them through the sign language. Then we also have indigenous language. Then I want us to understand age-based and stage-based pathway. For this reason, we have our children who are born and they find themselves under special need, or they find themselves having learning challenges, or sometimes they have delayed growth, or sometimes they are in an environment that they cannot achieve basic education according to their age. So for this reason, we have age-based and stage-based pathway that will always guide us to know how to take through the learners that go to school. Now you realize that in stage-based pathway caters for the needs of those who are challenged. Maybe it's a special need or a learning challenge. And then age-based pathway, it caters for a child who goes to the normal schools, whereby it starts from age 4 until age 8. That is grade 3. So this is created to help the children who are struggling in learning so that they find the right pathway. So you realize that when a child goes to preschool, that the facilitator will always assess. There is classroom assessment. If you maybe kindly check there in the middle, you can see CA. CA means classroom assessment. Now, classroom assessment means the class teacher, the facilitator is the one doing continuous assessment, the formative assessment. So if you realize on the age-based assessment, if a child is identified to be having learning challenges, can be easily be transferred to stage-based pathway, and his needs will still be catered to go through like a normal learning, specialized learning. Then sometimes maybe a child during birth or when a child was growing, you might have realized that a child has some challenges in growth or in learning, and so maybe this student is taken to stage-based pathway, and in between, before this child is does any kind of national exam, then you realize, maybe he's getting better and is improving, this child can as well cross over to the left side of age-based pathway. Why are we emphasizing on this age-based pathway? Because between the age of 4 years, when a child gets into school, to age 8, we, as the CBC curriculum, we need to kind of identify the area of strength or the right pathway for this child before sitting for the care exams at the age of 8 years. And so, whether a child is in special need unit or a child is in the normal school, this child will still, his need will still be catered for to be able to be assessed under the care exams. So it's not just a summative examination that will be done, but the CA, after every stage of CA, that means classroom assessment, and the facilitator who will be handling this child on daily basis will help to give a report, a clear assessment report, so that this child is guided in the right pathway. Maybe Teacher Arvince can just have an additional, can expand a bit of that.
Okay, well explained. Just a word is that the left side, which is in purple, are for the normal students, the age-based. A student goes from PP1 to PP2, and then grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. That is called early years education. Once a student finishes grade 3, they do an exam called Kenya Early Years Assessment. And then at the farthest right in blue, there is the stage-based assessment, or rather, the stage-based is for special needs children. A child will begin, you know, when a child has a challenge, at times you may detect or not detect. If a parent detects that a child has a challenge, you take them to the stage-based directly. But in most cases, you realize that we take our children to normal school, but then along the way, if it is discovered that a child has a challenge, they can move to the other side for stage-based so that they can be assisted. The only problem or challenge that most parents have is that we live in denial. If you're told that your child is challenged in a certain way, we never want to accept, and therefore do not want our children to move to the stage-based. In case a child does well at stage-based and it is discovered that normalcy is experienced, there it is allowed that a child crosses over to the age-based. Maybe I'll allow Janet to continue, finish the learning areas the shortest time possible, and then we'll throw it back to you to ask a few questions. Janet, you can proceed. Time is also on our side. So,
Thank you. Now we move to upper primary, where we have a grade 4 to grade 6. Grade 4 to grade 6 focuses on socialization skills, and the learning area has now expanded. The learning area that was environmental studies is now now they have been expanded to the one that was being called environmental studies is now three in one, which is STEM, agriculture, and social studies. In agriculture, we always put stroke on science. And then with the other 5, now there are 8 in total. Now you realize that the learning areas are increasing as the student is learning. Then we go to junior secondary. Junior secondary, it focuses on exploration. This part of exploration is based on the the career that maybe they intend to take. And this is where we as parents, we really need to work closely to what our children are learning. Now, it focuses on 3 tracks. The first track is STEM. The second track is social science. The third track is creative arts and sports. Now, there is a compulsory, there are compulsory tracks that need to be taken here under learning areas. That is, we have 4 learning areas under STEM that are compulsory. Then we also have 4 in social science. The learner chooses 4 learning areas under social science. And then, of course, in creative arts and sports, the learner chooses 1 learning area. And not just the learner here, you'll get to understand how the teacher, facilitator, and the parents work hand in hand. But the main interest here is the learner. What the learner is good at, that is how it should go. Then now I will hand over to Elder Arvince to continue.
Okay, thank you. So just to bring us up to where she has reached, we said that as child begins at grade 4 and 5, we have PP1, PP2, the 5 learning areas or 5 subjects. And then when a learner goes to grade 1 up to grade 3, a learner takes 7 learning areas or 7 subjects. And then we say that in upper primary, that is grade 4, 5, and 6, the learner has 8 learning areas or 8 subjects. And then where she has reached is that in junior secondary, maybe just to correct her, STEM, social science, arts, and sports are pathways. You call them tracks. Pathways, as she had mentioned before. A learner in junior secondary has 9 subjects or 9 learning areas. And parents are involved in learning. The facilitator is involved, a parent is involved, a learner is involved. We will learn, or rather go through later, what is the place of a parent as far as CBC is concerned. So at this juncture, I'd like to invite Sister Felicitas to take us through what happens in senior school.
So in senior school, that is from grade 10 to 12. We have tracks there, we have 3 tracks, whereby the first one is STEM, the next one is social science, and the third one is arts and sports. So the learning areas that you should know as parents is that mtoto akichukua STEM, that deals with pure sciences, whereby the learner will be able to do 5 learning areas. There is also applied science, whereby the learner will take 3 learning areas, and technical studies, whereby we have 8 learning areas. For the learning areas in pure science, we have biology, we have chemistry, we have physics, we have mathematics, and we have general science. That is pure science. If they choose to do applied science, they'll do 3 learning areas, whereby, 3 learning areas. Then in technical studies, we have 8 learning areas. We have compulsory, that mtoto akifika from grade 10 to 12, wanafaa kufanya. They are compulsory. The first one is functional English, functional Kiswahili, physical education, community service. Yes, zikiwa hivyo. Those ones are compulsory. Then we have the ones to be chosen, the choices. We have, they have to choose 2 learning areas from the main pathway, 1 learning area from any other pathway, and 4 learning areas which are compulsory. Maybe Brother Arvince can explain a bit.
Well done, well done. So Mtoto akifika senior school, there are 7 subjects anafaa kufanya. That is 7 learning areas. Of those 7, 4 are compulsory, vile wamesema. There is functional English, there is functional Kiswahili, stroke hiyo mambo ya Kenya Sign Language yenye walizungumzia. Then there is physical education, it's also compulsory. And then the third one is, Janet, maybe you can remind me, the fourth one, yani. The fourth one.
The fourth one is community service learning.
Yeah, community service learning. Those are 4. So I said functional English, functional Kiswahili, stroke Kenya Sign Language, there is physical education, and community service learning. Those are 4 compulsory. Every child must take. And then the remaining 3, a child will choose from 2 pathways. We said there are 3 pathways. Kuna STEM, kuna social science, and then kuna arts and
sports science.
So assuming that Mimi, I am interested in STEM. Whatever I want to do ultimately in life, maybe I want to be a doctor, my line is STEM. So if STEM is my main pathway, I will take 2 learning areas from STEM, and then the remaining 1 learning area, to make it 7, I will pick from either social science or arts. So that will give you 7. If my strength is in social science, then I will take 2 learning areas from social science and the remaining 1 in either STEM or arts and sports. If my strength is in sports, I will take 2 learning areas in sports and then 1 learning area in either. So at this juncture, I will throw it to us, because hapo tunaweza kuwa na swali. If there's a question, something you need clarification, before we proceed, it is to the congregation now. You can raise up your hand if you have a question, or even a comment ya kuongezea. Brother Jason, I don't know the communication team wako hapo, wakusaidie mai kama tuko nazo zote huko. Okay. Just come up front.
Thank you so much. So how does CBC cater for those that have special needs?
Thank you. There's a question that has been asked. How does CBC cater for those with special needs? Janet, can you attempt that?
Okay, we know very well that learning starts from early years, and that is why we had age-based and stage-based pathway. We had mentioned to you that there is a pathway for the normal learner, and there is a pathway for those who are a bit challenged in learning or in growth, that is under special needs. And that is why there is this part of inclusion. So we realize that the way a child is being assessed, classroom assessment, the way the facilitator will be assessing this child as this child is learning between the age of 4 years to 8 years, the facilitator, or rather the parent, will have been informed that your child is having some challenges in 1, 2, 3. Therefore, we still have to assess this child and identify the area of strength where we introduce this child to intermediate level of learning. So the introduction of after the first care assessment, because this child will still do the care assessment. After that, when this normal child will be going to grade 4, this other child will be going to intermediate level of learning. And there, because CBC is a skill-based curricula, this child will be introduced to skills that he or she can achieve in future. Yeah, there's a program that is catering for them when they go for intermediate level of learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Janet. Just to add on top of that, communication team, can you take us back to the age-based and stage-based pathway that Janet explained? Apple. So just on the farthest right, hiyo yenye iko in blue inaitwa foundation level. Inaanza PP1 up to grade 3. That is the foundation level. So in most cases utapata nimepeleka mtoto wangu to normal hii ya age based from the farthest left. Nikipeleka mtoto wangu kwa normal school, then a parent, a facilitator realizes that this parent is a special needs, then this child will be taken to the stage base, the other side in blue. So the child will learn foundational level, that is from age 4 up to age 8. So wenzake huku kwa normal wataanza PP1 up to PP3. Then this child has facilitators when you handle special needs. And at grade 3, they will do an assessment referred to as Kenya Early Years Assessment, just like our wenzake wenye wako normal, but yake itakuwa ya a child with special needs. Akimaliza hiyo grade 3, ataenda hiyo intermediate level yenye Janet anazungumzia. Intermediate level, hao wengine wakifanya grade 4, 5 and 6. That is the upper primary, yeye atakuwa intermediate level, being attended to by a facilitator who handles a child with special needs. Wenzake wakienda junior school, that is grade 7, 8 and 9, yeye anaenda kitu inaitwa pre-vocational training, handled by specialists. Akimaliza pre-vocational, then anaingia kitu inaitwa vocational. So there are special schools where they are being attended to. Thank you, my brother. Any other question? Yeah, my brother, you just come up front. It's good you say your name and then ask a question or comment.
Thank you very much, teachers, members. My name is Eric Maura. I have been listening to you. I have written down like 3 questions. I would like you to answer them in brief. One has to do with the names. I noticed that CBC has changed the terminology for almost everything from 844, but my worry was, is it just the name that has changed, or it is even the content? Because like if you stop calling a class, you call it a grade, I mean, have you changed something else, or it's just the name? If you stop calling Kiswahili, you start calling it functional Kiswahili. What is changing? What is making it functional? That's one question. So, apart from changing the name, do you change the content? That's the first question. So, another question is, when I listen how the CBC is structured, it is looking on the competence of the child, as opposed to the cramming we used to do. Yes. But again, I have a feeling, now this is the area I want you to enlighten me as a parent. I have a feeling that CBC might make students to be one-sided. In this way, because we have noticed a child from the word go in the competence he has, and we have built on them over the years, it means then we are going to have a person when he grows up, he's going to be a person who is one-sided, like he is too much into one thing and almost zero in other things. And like now me, who can do so many things at the same time. I can be a farmer. If farming does not work, I can go and become something else like a driver. I have many areas that I can experiment with in life. But for a CBC, I feel like if your competency was running, you become an athlete. And if athlete doesn't work, then you are doomed. I don't know whether that's the feeling or whether there's something else you can add on to that. And finally, as I sit down, because of time, there's a question I had about, in terms of like, we are living in a changing world, and I have noticed among the people of my age that people are changing careers. I have done a small research and found that people are doing different jobs from what they learned in college or in campus. a lot of people are in offices doing things they never studied for. And it is not because they want, okay? Even me right now, if you ask me, I studied human resources, but because the jobs for human resources were few, I found myself doing graphic design. So now I'm a graphic designer, not because I went to school to do that, but because the environment around me made it easier for me to be a graphic. So if my son is in CBC and the world remains the same, it is changing, how will CBC help him to become something else if the environment dictates so? Okay? What if someone is trained to be a doctor and then the environment does not open opportunities for him to be a doctor? How easy is it for a CBC person to become something else? Those are my questions. I'll be glad if you can answer them briefly.
Thank you. I will ask Sister Felicitas to answer the first one, and then I will take the second and the third.
Okay, the first question was all about the changing of terminologies, right? Yes. Yes, we have tried to change some of the terminologies like grade to be class. And if you look at the books, that even you are maybe a child in grade 5 is using si yenye alikuwa anatumia akiwa uko PP, because even the content has changed. For example, I remember in 844 there was a time we were teaching the young children on how to use a toilet. Then the first step, if I remember, ilikuwa inasema eti knock the door of the toilets, open, enter, use the toilet, flush, close the door. For in CBC now we don't do that. If it's a child in maybe PP1 ama ni kadogo sana, unamfundisha toileting, uwezi mpizo procedures mingi, utampatia maybe a potty, umwambie sit, do the thing, yes. No, na make sure amefanya nini? Amefanya. As time goes on, utaona huyu mtoto hata anakopa kutumia potty ukiwa. So, those are the things that in CBC we have to change. Tuachane hiyo ya kitambo ndio watoto washike the real thing. They have to gain the skill, not just, yes.
Thank you. My brother would like to just to add on that it is not only about the change of names. It goes with even the change of content, the learning outcomes that a given learner is expected to attain. You look at, for example, in grade 7, which is junior school, which is an equivalent of formerly class 7, the content that they do, there is some borrowing or equivalent of what we used to do in Form 1. So that reorganization is geared towards attainment of certain learning outcomes, shaping a given learner into a given career path. We will go through the career wheel and we shall see the way in which our learners are reorganized. So it is not only about change of names, but about the packaging of a child so that the expected core competencies are attained. Maybe to the second question was CBC, whether it is one-sided or not. What CBC has done, just to begin with what we have in 844. Remember 844 was so emphasizing on cognitive development, the development of the mind. That was the main focus, and the exam-oriented. 844 was not very keen about Kituneta sports. 844 was not very keen about talent, vitu kama arts and music. That is what CBC has tried to elevate, so that can we recognize these other two, which currently sasa tunaita the pathways. So arts and sports, of course, hiyo ni pathway moja. What I'd like to say is that CBC is not one-sided, because at the initial stages, from preschool up to primary school, all the children do the same subjects. But then, when you come to junior school, we say that in junior school they do a total of 9. A child chooses 4 from STEM as a pathway, a child chooses 4 from social science, and then chooses 1 from arts. Of course, depending on one's interest. But now, when it comes to senior school, we said that there are 4 compulsory learning areas. And then, the remaining 3 If we were to be one-sided, all the remaining 3 would be chosen from one pathway. But for purposes of having a fallback plan, if I am strong at STEM, I will choose 2 pathways from STEM, so that is my primary or the first priority pathway of my career. Then I pick one learning area, maybe from arts and sports. So I may pick music. If STEM, I wanted to be a doctor, does not work, then I have a fallback plan, which is music. So CBC is not one-sided. CBC has variations, and of course, it's about monitoring of the progress. That is why formative assessment is there. And then the last thing that you asked was about, yes.
Okay, maybe if I can add to emphasize that CBC is not one-sided, because with CBC, by the time a child chooses the pathways, or rather the learning areas that they are good at, it means that they are taking ownership of learning. It is child-centered, and it has these students have interest in what they are doing. If you've chosen music, for example, you'll do it with all your heart, with the passion that you have it. And remember, you also have the compulsory learning areas. If anything happens that you don't succeed in one area that you've chosen, then you can as well have other areas as a backup. Remember, all these areas, having 7 areas that you'll finally do as an exam, 4 of them are compulsory, but 3 of them are like your own choice. So this means that it's child-centered right from preschool, compared to 844, whereby when you are in secondary is when now you start having, you are torn in between career. Because my cousin did 1, 2, 3 and went to this university, so you also want to do it. That is in 844. But in CBC, you started this pathway when you are still growing in this curriculum. By the time you are almost done with it, you've stabilized and you know exactly what you want to do. So you'll have like strong foundation in each and every learning area that you'll be pursuing. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Janet. On the last question about whether one can change from one profession to another, one of the national goals that our sister read was to promote self-fulfillment. That is one of the goals of education. And of course, if you look at the core competencies, one of them that she read was self-efficacy. Ideally, the general goal of education is to build an individual who can be a decision maker. Whatever you want to pursue may not work, but since you have been built as an individual, then creation of employment should be an option. So just like it is the case in 844, you've heard in most cases, people do ask, ile maths inatusaidia nini? Maths is so vital in every child. Even those of us who are arts-based in the current 844, what maths does, maths, by the way, inapanuanga mtu akili. That is the primary role of mathematics. So every learning, other than getting to a given career, the primary goal of learning is to build you so that you can be as creative as possible. So if whatever you intend to do does not work, then you should be able to create employment. Thank you. I don't know whether you are satisfied with the answers. Thank you. So Sister Felicitas will add something, then we proceed kama hakuna jambo. Okay, my brother has a question from that end. Felicitas, add as my brother comes.
Yes, nikimjibu alikuwa ameulizia Kiswahili. If you look at our subject there before, the learning areas, maybe in grade 7 and 8, they were doing Kiswahili as a subject. But now kifika senior school, itakuwa Kiswahili kipevu. ile iko detailed kabisa. That is why it has changed. Kiswahili kipevu, ndani kabisa. Thank you.
Happy Sabbath. I wanted to ask one question. CPC, I find it not very much equal. A student, a learner in a certain school is using a different book called Moran, publisher called Moran. Another one is using another book called Spotlight. Another one is using another book written by a mentor. I think this thing is very not good. Do you have somebody who is regulating these books? Like, unlike 844, you can use one book. Somebody is in Turkana County is the same person using in Kisii. And to me, the same book. Again, I think we had CPC. We used to do art and craft. Me, I did what we call art and craft, music, science. I don't think this is PC adding any value. They could have written the 844 because 844 we used to have art and craft, music, science, of which is ilikuwa inatusaidia sana kufanya hizo kazi za science, kushona nguo tulikuwa na shona, art and craft tunatengeneza nyumba ya kuku, kila kitu hizo. So do you have something which is regulating these textbooks? The content, is it the same? And the PC, I find it not learner-centered. It's a parent-centered. A learner can come home and tell me that I want you to go and make me a shaker. It defines me, it's me who is going to search those trees all over the village, and I make it, and I give the I think Apple, you need to check something.
So I'll respond to the two concerns. First concern is about regulator of the books that we use, and the second concern is about whether CBC is learner-centered or parent-centered. Here parent-centered tunaona ni mpya. Learning tunajuanga teacher-centered and learner-centered. Maybe parent-centered, here CBC may be a third one. Thank you, my brother. Maybe to begin with, there is KICD that is charged with the responsibility of development curriculum. Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development. Of course, there are varied publishers that if they go through their books, they may approved. So if a book is approved by KICD, then that book can be used. So shule itachagua ni kitabu gani itatumia. And remember, CBC is also new. It is a new baby we have, and CBC is still evolving. So even as we progress, we'll be getting guided further. Kitu muhimu nafaa kuangalia kwa kitabu is it approved by KICD? It may be valid, shule inaweza chagua, but that is the regulator. And then the next thing concerning whether CBC is learner-centered, I request communication team, you'll move to, I think it is the 29th slide, the second last slide, on the role of parents in CBC. Very, very important. Unafaa kujua kama mtoto amekwambia utengeneze, amepewa task ya kutengeneza shaker. Are you the one to make that shaker, or what is your place as a parent in the making of that shaker? I will ask Sister Janice to take us through those roles in addressing that question that you have.
Okay, thank you. I want to encourage parents to allow learners to be learners, or to allow children to be children at home. Sometimes we take things for granted until the time that your child is tasked with an activity as assignment. That is when you find yourself doing assignment for your child instead of supporting your child. However, all is not lost. Let's first get to know what we should do as parents. When a child is born, there are the basic things that a child should be doing, and there is growth pattern for each and every child. Children should play. Our children should play. We should allow our children to play. The mistake that we do as parents, we put our children into media. We put our children into media. They watch media from our TV, from laptops, from our phone. They are glued on activities that are going on social media, instead of developing their gross motor skills and fine motor skills. If a child is allowed to play at your own time, I want to give you assignment as parents today. Go research on importance of playing. You as a parent, you are allowed to play. In fact, you used to play until you are being caned or you are being punished for overplay. However, you developed your gross motor skills and fine motor skills so well. So when a child plays, a child does a lot of achieves growth pattern, especially when your child is doing a lot of manipulatives like constructive play, like thinking skills, going through thinking skills. A child becomes more independent. At the age of our children nowadays, they can't even spread their bed. They can't even model. In fact, you go to the supermarket to buy a plasticine. Instead of looking for clay somewhere, you go for maybe nature walk somewhere. You look for the black clay or brown clay so that they manipulate it to develop their pincer grip or their fine motor skills, such that when they are given assignment, for example, if they've been told, go do like weaving or threading, they should easily do that instead of you going to buy a set of something that is already done. So I want to challenge you that allow your children to play so that their gross motor skills is fully developed and their fine motor skills is developed. Now let's come back to the role of the parents. We as parents in CBC curriculum, we should provide the basic needs. What are the basic needs that we should provide? We should give our children opportunity to go to school. When they go to school, they'll get facilitator there. The facilitator will be communicating the basic requirements that are needed. If a child is needed with writing materials, if a child is needed with things to carry out experiments, especially our government schools, public schools, maybe they don't have the materials, your child maybe is required to come to school with the materials that are needed, kindly provide. That is your role in this CBC curriculum. Then we should also foster conducive environment. The environment does not need, it doesn't cost anything. A child needs a loving, peaceful environment. An environment where the parents are peaceful, the parents are loving, and as Adventists, our children should be brought up in an environment that we acknowledge that Jesus Christ is our role model in the pattern of growing. When Jesus Christ was born, he was oriented in church. He used to go to church. He was given that opportunity with the parents to go to church. And when he was growing, he had good character. So at home, we should create such an environment that a child can endure and nurture the Christian values, we should create an environment that a child can open a book and study and do even assignment, because if the environment is chaotic, if the environment is too noisy, if the environment does not provide the basic needs like food, shelter, proper sanitation, then this child will not be able to learn well. The cognitive development for this child will be interfered with. So let's be very careful on how we kind of conduct our behavior. How do we behave at home? We as parents, our behavior matters. We create the environment depending on how we behave as parents. The food that we eat, the language that we talk. You might be speaking your mother tongue, you might be speaking Kiswahili. However, the language might be dirty, that it is toxic to this child. So this child will not have a character that can make him to be oriented in CBC environment. Remember, our role as parents is also focused, we are also looking at the pillars of CBC, where we have the values. And remember, values are also in Christianity. So if we miss that, if we come out of that one pillar, then we lose to have a conducive environment. Then another thing that we should be doing as parents, we should actively participate in our child's education, including reinforcing learning at home and collaborating with the facilitators. Let's respect the teachers, because this is still a new curriculum. The teachers are still trying to understand it. We need support from parents, because it is like a triangle where a community should also be involved, so that our children grow well to achieve their pathways and finally the right career. So your active involvement will enable you to know the strength of your child and to identify areas of weakness, so that the facilitator will help you will help your child to rectify, or rather early intervention will be done. That is, if you are actively involved in your child's learning, so that your child has the right pathway. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet. We are almost winding up, but before then, if you read from the book Education, page 20, paragraph 1, it talks about happy is the man that findeth wisdom. That the system of education instituted at the beginning of the world was to be a model for man throughout all after time. That as an illustration of its principles, a model school was established in Eden, the home of our first parents. The Garden of Eden was a schoolroom. Nature was the lesson book. The Creator himself was the instructor, and the parents of the human family were the students. Amen? So, just like in the original school, let us learn to train our children to appreciate nature. Let us learn as parents that we have a part to play in CBC. Yours is to provide the materials that are needed. A child has the procedure. Maybe you can assist, but learning is learner-centered. Just like a teacher facilitates, so should you as a parent facilitate learning, so that you can let the learner make whatever item they are required to prepare. Just assist them towards attaining. Quickly, even as we wind up, we had some people ask that how are children assessed in CBC, even as we wind up.
Okay, we have some forms of assessment in CBC. For example, if you look at my hand here, I have an assessment book. That means there is a strand whereby the teacher has taught under substrand. Akishafundisha, the teacher will be able to assess the learner in a good manner. We had one there in our slide. Sijui.
Communication team kindly project CBC juu kidogo.
Okay, akiendelea ku project.
Chini. Chini bado chini, wewe umeenda juu. Chini. Slide 27, I'm told so. Up.
Yes, if you look at it well, there is age, grade, reports, there is internal and external. Nikisoma hii yangu hapa, there is the teacher's name, term, year, grade, the learning area, maybe it's music. Maybe the teacher during that week was teaching about the strand performing, and then the sub-strand was songs. So when the teacher is going to assess the learner, ataandika jina ya mtoto, then the learning outcome ya kwanza maybe itakuwa the types of songs. Huyo mtoto alikuwa aje? Did this child sing well? Did she exceed the expectation? Because utaona hapo kuna EE ambayo ni exceeding expectation, kuna ME meeting expectation, kuna AE approaching expectation, na kuna below E, that is below expectation. So vile mtoto anafanya, mwalimu ataona vizuri if the child has exceeded or not. So it has different learning outcomes depending on the strand or the substrand that the teacher is teaching. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe to add is that most schools, I think, will change 0 to 25%, if that is the max the child scores, below expectation.
Yeah.
Then 26 up to 50 is approaching expectation. She has abbreviated AE. And then between 51 up to 75 is meeting expectation, and then exceeded expectation is 76 to 100.
Sure.
Though naona kuna zingine wanatumia tofauti 0 to 49 below expectation and what have you, but then most schools use the categories here 25% difference. Maybe just to add is that when a child begins school, kuna classroom assessment which Janet was talking about. Hiyo ni formative. E-assessment book inatumika every now and then. Then at the end of every term, kuna mtihani inafaa kutoka kwa NEC inaitwa SBA, school based assessment. Mtihani inatoka NEC, wanapewa shuleni, they are marked, they upload marks each school. And then there are certain exams that are done at grade 3. Kenya Early Years Assessment, that is CARE. Mtoto anafanya, wanakuwa graded. And then mtoto akifika grade 6 anafanya KIPSEA. What is KIPSEA in full, my sister? Kenya Primary School Education Assessment. And then mtoto akifika grade 9 pia kuna mtihani wanafanya which is called KJSEA, which is Kenya Junior
School Education Assessment.
And then mtoto akifika grade 12 there is a national exam that they do which is called
Kenya Certificate of Basic Education,
KCBE. So the essence ya kufanya hizo national exams at grade 3, grade 6, grade 9, grade 12, they are called summative assessment, and the essence of summative assessment is for placement. Ili ujue mtoto ako strong kwa hii, this is the pathway yenye ataenda, this is the career path ya mtoto, it is through those summative assessments. There is something we'll not talk about now because of time. Kuna hii senior school. How are schools going to select watoto wa kwenda senior school? We'll not respond to because of time. Maybe something to mention as we wind up in the next 5 minutes. Okay, we'll wind up in the next 2 minutes. Nipeleke kwa career wheel. Kuna hiyo sako yenye kuna the different careers. That is the last thing we are going through as we wind up. That is the last thing we are going through as we wind up. There is the career wheel. Mtoto ultimately, which careers will they take? Panda juu kidogo. Panda juu kuna hiyo the two wheels. Ya juu ya hiyo. Hiyo. So this is a career wheel, and this career wheel shows what kind of a profession a child will become ultimately. Hapo ndani innermost imeandikwa pathways. We said that there are 3 pathways. Which are the pathways that we mentioned, Otoma? The 3 pathways we mentioned, one is we have social science, ya pili arts and sports, and then ya tatu STEM. So assuming that mtoto ni wa STEM. STEM tulisema there are 3 tracks. STEM as a pathway is subdivided into 3 tracks. Ya kwanza ni pure science, and then ya pili kuna applied science, and then ya tatu ni career and technical subjects. So mtoto for example wa STEM, ukiangalia hiyo career wheel, STEM mtoto anaweza kuwa wa pure science. So kuna hiyo track ya pure science, there are a number of professions. Unlike Janet to read kwa pure science, what kind of a child can we get? Which kind of profession?
Under pure science, we have chemists, we have mathematician, hydrologist, biologist, geologist,
among others. So those are just but a few. And so many arts and sports.
Under arts and sports,
read for me one track and the career yenye mtu anaweza kuwa.
Okay, we have performing arts.
Performing art is a track. What are the professions?
We have animator, we have actor, we have musician, comedian, we have...
Thank you for that. So that career will iko na tracks, and then on those tracks there are a certain profession that one can become. You can take us through conclusion, my sister. Conclusion. We conclude by saying that true education is not only about cognitive. Cognitive is the development of the mind, psychomotor, and affective domains of learning, of preparing students for the life on earth only. But true education, as we defined prior in education, page 7, paragraph 3, should prepare a child to be able to see God as the ultimate goal of education. And then from Letters and Manuscripts, volume 13, 1898, paragraph 4, it says that in these last days, we need large faith increasing in the growth of knowledge and wisdom, which cannot be derived from any other source than from the treasure of knowledge in God and Jesus Christ. Let the science, let the experiments that we do, let the research that our children do, let them appreciate that their discoveries from God. God is enabling us to discover that which we had not known. May God bless us all. May we have a blessed Sabbath. If you have more questions, you may see us later. Maybe I will allow Elder only. Na kuwa pressurized over time. They'd like us to wind. Elder Omundi, even as we finish.
I just wanted to make it this way. A child is enrolled in KR, that's grade 3. From grade 3 goes to KIPSEA, from KIPSEA, KHSE, and the Kenya Certificate of Basic Education. All these levels, do we expect next certificates, or what do you expect as an award? So maybe the parents who are here to get it very clear, because some are asking certificates in grade 6 because they do what we call a NEC exam, and they are waiting for certificates. What do they get?
Respond to that. Sister Felicitas.
Okay, for the parents in grade 6, hata mimi nishakuwa mzazi hapo. After the assessment, results inakuja, you'll be given the certificate, though una print through your school. So iko from the neck. Certificate unapata. Is it okay? Yes, certificates ziko.
Elder, maybe you have a contrary opinion. Nominal roll. Result slips. The result slips. Yeah, iko sawa. That is okay. I hope you had him. Yeah, that you only get certificates at grade 12 after they have done KCB, Kenya Certificate of Basic Education. Otherwise, hizi levels zingine tunapata result slip. Hata mimi nishaiona result slip. Nishaiona result. So, for instance, what you printed is the result. And then for your assessment book at your school, tell them that the revised TASA Central is recommending we no longer talk of teachers. So you revise your assessment book. There's a video I'm told the communication team wanatuwekea, and then we wind up.
Yes, the video is all about after your child chooses the career, mahali anafaa kuenda. Don't force your child kuingia mahali wewe unataka. Wacha yeye mwenyewe aone I'm good in this na hii sitaweza, because ukimforce maybe afanye kama akuwe daktari na maybe hana hizo skills, atafika huko na atakwama na kurudi na nyume atakuwa shida sana. I want to check on that video, uone vile iko. Weka sauti.
Yes. So Mr. Guy in here and you will. You never know so me. Hey! Run!
So that is what will happen. If you force your child to be a doctor na hawezi, atafika hapo na atakuita help, it will be too late for the boy or girl to go back and choose the best career. May God bless you.
I request that we rise so that we can pray. If you have more questions, we can ask Bada. Let us believe and pray. Thank you. This far you brought us, O gracious Father. We pray, O King of Kings, that you may forgive us our trespasses, Lord. We ask, Father, that you may enable us to be able to assist our children, O King of Kings, to be able to make the right choices, Father. Enable us as parents to be able to appreciate our roles as parents in as far as assisting our children in their learning is concerned, Father. That you may enable us, Father, not to forget to train these children, O King of Kings, to be able, O gracious Father, to be ready, O gracious Father, for the work on this earth and as well as the future eternal life, Father. We ask all this, trusting and believing that they reach you in the name of Jesus Christ and believe. Amen.
Hello? Hello? I don't know why we are so few like this, but in most cases, I understand that going to heaven, you are not going to be very many. Number two, when God is going to come to this world to take East Russia's people, one, remember God is going to come on a Sabbath. This is not written anywhere, but according to my own thinking, God is going to come on a Sabbath. Be aware of that one and be careful. And at what time of the Sabbath? Eh? At what time? Morning. To me, I say no. God will come back to this world on a Sabbath, according to my own thinking. And it's not in the morning. It will come on a Sabbath evening. Ndio atapita kwa kila makanisa aone wala ambao wamebaki huko aenda nao mbinguni. Why should you miss this precious opportunity? Because I know dedicated people, Seventh-day Adventists, they still have 40 time to remain in the church until the last prayer is being done. So it doesn't matter you came very early in the morning. But what matters, how did you persevere until the last minute? Because when Noah was preaching, those who came very early to build the boat did not afford to be saved. But those who came late and they afforded to stay until the last minute, they were saved. So be careful. If you come late in the church, don't worry. But don't leave early from the church. It's my call this evening. I wanted to tell you that thank you, the panelists who have offered us an overview about CBC. We seem not to be understanding. In fact, the CBC, what I even teachers have not understood fully what is being offered. But we are all learning. Both the parents and the teachers, we are all learning. So thank you for this panel, and thank you for what you have taken this time. Even if we are very few, can we afford to go to departmentals? Because I'm still seeing around 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I'm not going to give you 30 minutes, only 20 minutes in your departmental levels. Amo Pandei, Wamama Pandei, Sioni Vijana because wameshaenda mahali. So after the 20 minutes, I ring the bell, we come as one, and then we offer a prayer for us to go. Already 1 minute is already gone, so we are remaining with the 19 minutes. Let's stand up as we pray and go to our departmentals. You want to pray? Our kind and gracious Father in heaven, thank you for this time, God. Thank you for letting us to persevere, worshiping you, and for offering all our iniquities before you so that you can cleanse us, God. As we disperse to our departmentals, guide us, for we pray in Jesus' name. MMM, this place, ladies, this place. And if you don't have anywhere to be, I will see. But I'm not seeing children and the rest. Please, let's do it in the next 5 minutes. You console in the next 15 minutes, and then we disperse.